Well, welcome. We're happy to have you here today. Uh, you'll have time to ask questions after, but at this point, we'd like to introduce ourselves and our project. This project is focus group assessment of faculty USF use of our library's impact services and resources. The live event is today, December 10th, 2:20 to 3 o'clock p.m. My name is Matt Torrence, Associate Librarian at USF in Tampa, and this is my colleague.
Hi, I'm Allison Symulevich, Associate Librarian as well, and I work with the social sciences at USF Tampa campus.
And there'll be another slide about us, so don't worry if you hear a little bit more. We'll tell you as we go along. So next, I just wanted to include the things that are good requirements of the Charleston Conference, that this is, the code of conduct. So we do invite any perspectives and opinions, and all participants are expected to treat others with respect and consideration. So no bad stuff, just keep it on. Let us know what you think, but you know all the rules. And then finally, please do the following to make sure this is accessible. This is going to be video recorded. We will be live for the question and answer on December 10th, but all speakers should use microphones. Participants should identify themselves by name and affiliation, so we kind of know a little bit about you and we can tailor the answers, the responses, as well as bring in other speakers or questions together. And we will repeat the questions as they are asked. So with that having been said, this is just our sort of initial slide, which is a shortened title. But one of the goals that we had was this, with this project, and this is going to be a multi-layered process. We actually presented at Charleston last year about updating the website. And this is just a little bit about what we did with that. And what I'll go into now is the program and grant summary. And I think that is your slide.
Sure. So as Matt said, we revised content on our LibGuide to kind of streamline it more, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the future or in the next couple of slides. But we really wanted to focus on three main components: author profiles, journal metrics, and article level metrics. We gathered more information at the Charleston Forum last year from participants, and we realized that further improvements to the services, including the LibGuide, required more stakeholder input at the University of South Florida. So we applied for an internal mini grant in the library, and we received $2,000 to incentivize faculty participation. We did start the IRB process just to be sure, even though we're not exactly testing on human subjects. But we wanted to make sure that our interview questions fell within the right framework. IRB informed us that we actually did not have to apply, so it was nice to save us some paperwork.
And I'll add a little bit more before I go back to Allison on the next slide to talk about the later steps. But at our university, this project was judged to be quality assessment and program improvement. Thus, we were not required to go through the full IRB process. So next, here's just a little bit about the project and grant summary. And
so this was just so that you could see what we included in our proposal, the language we use. So if you decide that you want to do something like this, you have example language. Basically, we were hoping for 20 to 40 participants to assess our services and the resources and tools that we also have. And we wanted to find out, are we not providing relevant and helpful services? We were hoping we were, but we wanted to see how best to help our patrons. So we were going to be doing anecdotal evidence and software comment and text analysis, which is something new for me. So I'll talk more about my fun experiences with in vivo. But this is just what we thought would be the best way of finding out, whether or not we were hitting the mark.
And I will say, I'll add a little bit more here as well. There were several ways that we identified potential participants. And this was part of the nuance of this project that got a little bit different. You can see the list there of the bullet points. We did approach department chairs and directors as one group, and we did, a lot of fun with mail merges and sending kind of individualized messages to try to get people to feel like this was something where they could have an impact on not just their departments and their subject areas, but also with their colleagues. But we did the same thing with the other groups. We did talk to people that we had a registered relationship with in terms of having impact consultations, which we keep track of through our consultation services. And then we did sort of throw in some known contacts, people that we knew were at certain levels that would be beneficial to the project, and also people that we knew might be willing to give us some more sort of open and honest opinions, which is really difficult because even though this sounds like a low stakes thing, I think people were a little bit, they're always a little bit concerned whenever you're asking them to talk, especially when it's being recorded. And to update you a little more on what we previously did, and this slide is a little wonky, but you can see the spike there. Right about at the beginning was where we were with the LibGuide that we created for this project. That's the number of hits, it was just a little over 200 for that month. And obviously August becomes a bigger month, but that was a spike we hadn't seen before. That was sort of in accordance with the marketing we'd done after Allison and my update of the guide, and before we had really thought about the focus group. So that was something that motivated us to think about doing this a little bit more and a little bit to find out what times of year as well people wanted, and that became one of the questions, and we'll kind of go through those a little later. But you can see here, obviously it dropped off in September and kind of went up, and there's always evaluation times. So you see the calendar, obviously December is not going to be the busiest, but we haven't really had the same spike. So we're hoping that now we'll have a little bit more information to try to reinvigorate that, and we should naturally see a little bit more in August of 2004, which we haven't measured yet because we're waiting to see what the next numbers will hold for us. And just a little bit more on statistics. Like I was saying, we did work through various channels to do this. We were really aided by our colleagues, and we have a Library Wire newsletter, that's what we call it, and that's distributed by subject by a whole group of people that do wonderful work. I know Allison and myself, I work in the sciences, Allison works in the social sciences, and we each were working with various groups to promote this through that, as well as our colleagues. And then we also have a workshop program where people were referencing this, and we have certain workshops that fit into a track that was very helpful for this, specifically dealing with the resources that we were focusing on, like Web of Science and Scopus, SciVal Insights, Google Scholar, all those different measures to see what people thought. And you can see there, I made a note about the big rise from July to September, which some of that was expected, but even compared to previous years, the numbers had gone up pretty heavily. So next, this is something we can both talk about, but for me, this was a big part of the work. We'll get into more in a moment about why it got more exciting at various times based on our geographic location. But we talked about the different groups that we specifically targeted, and we did send personalized emails. And we had those three options because we really didn't want to try to make it one size fits all. We wanted to make sure that people understood that we were contacting them for a reason, while also making it as standardized as possible. So we did tell them, you're being contacted because you are a chair or a director in this particular program, or you are someone with whom we've spoken, or you're someone that we think has valuable input. So that's just a little more about how we sort of vision this. And we obviously called them on the oldest, most rotary phone in the world, which is always fun.
And we decided to send personalized emails. Matt fought hard with mail merge to, to do this because we noticed in working with faculty that if it says, hi, so and so, they're more likely to read it. And that seems like a silly thing to do, but we just thought it was worth the extra effort to make sure that people felt addressed properly.
And it was, I think, a good thing. And I did not immediately agree that we should do it to expend the effort. And I made one mistake. If you've messed with mail merge, please make sure to go offline, especially if you're on a Mac. But I was able to solve the problem, and it did work out well because people felt, I think, a little more seen and approached from a personal level. So that was a great idea, I think, to help with this. And just to summarize, we did get, even despite some of the hurdles that we'll talk about here in a few slides, we ended up with 17 or 18, I can't remember the exact number, total participants. We did lose a few, again, due to those challenges, but that was enough, I think, that we got some valuable results. And here's an example of one of the messages. We did link to the guide. We included all the text. This particular one described, again, the things we've talked about a little bit with the IRB process. And this particular invitation was one that was sent to those that had previously utilized our services. And that sentence was the one that was variable. So these were the initial times and dates that we had scheduled with 5 groups. And again, as we've hinted, there were some changes, specifically groups 1 and 2. But Allison, please add anything else that I missed on this one.
Oh yeah, no, we included the example text. Feel free to reach out to us and we can send you the emails so you don't have to try to figure out copying and pasting from the slide or taking screenshots. But we just wanted to lay out what we were trying to do, give a little bit more information than probably what was necessary. I think we were a little worried people wouldn't make it to the end of the email. But we got a number of participants right off the bat, so we thought this was the best way to approach it.
And I'll admit, I wanted to make it much longer. Allison was wonderful in keeping it more on the side of brevity. But we did agree that there were some things in here, again, we've discussed. And when we do publish in the proceedings for this and more beyond that, we'll also go into kind of what happened there, and we'll add this as an attachment or as an appendix rather that you can use. And there's no problem with sharing in the library world, so any language is open to you. And I also wanted to mention, I know the incentive is a little bit on the ubiquitous nature, the $50 Amazon gift card, but that turned out to be one of the easiest things that we could do with the business office in terms of making it seamless for both the participants and for us, and to give someone something that they could use easily and quickly. Other things were a little more difficult. We really wanted to make it first much more personal, but we thought at this point, as much as it's no fun to give something that's a little bit more common, we would have loved to go to a local bookstore, but we felt this would be the most useful, and hopefully it did incentivize participation for quite a few people. So, and next is the big news.
So as we've alluded to, we ran into some challenges. Hurricane Milton being the biggest. It basically threw off our timeline. We had to cancel 2 of our focus groups for which we had the most individuals scheduled for. We tried to do damage control by sending out an initial email as quickly as possible saying that they've been canceled. We picked dates the following week that corresponded to the previously scheduled timeframes so that we knew people were or hoped that people were not teaching at that time. And we sent out, like I said, a series of emails to really try to address this. One, to make sure everyone was okay, but two, to get the ball rolling, because we thought we were, so set in our schedule, but life throws you curveballs. So luckily
Yeah.
we were all okay. But the
And we,
university had to close for a week. So
yeah, we did lose quite a bit of time, and so did a lot of people, and they lost a lot more. So as Allison said, it was good that we were able to keep this momentum going, and wonderful to hear that so many people bonded together. Um,
So we offered 6 potential times for flexibility, some in the mornings, some in the afternoons, different days of the week, based on, a Monday, Wednesday, Friday course schedule or a Tuesday, Thursday course schedule. We chose to do remote meetings based on both our data collection needs and just ease on participants. It's easier to meet in your pajamas online rather than coming into the library, and it also helped because we were able to do Teams meetings and download transcripts, which we'll go into a little bit more. As we said, we were hoping to incentivize participants by gift cards, and we did multiple test runs to make sure that the transcripts were downloadable, and oddly enough, to make sure that we could add participants without updating the calendar invite for participants at each move. So Matt dealt with the calendaring and I dealt with Teams. So transcripts.
and there were a lot of fun with that. I think we spent an entire morning on that at one point and talking to other people, because the last thing you want to do is annoy these people that are giving you this valuable input, as I think you were saying. So, but it ended up well. And this is another thing. I'm not going to read all of this, but this is the list of questions. We'll include this also as an appendix, and hopefully you'll see this in the literature at some point. We did labor over these. We worked with our department head of research and instruction at USF Tampa, along with getting input from other colleagues. But you can kind of see here the themes. The answers did skip around a bit because, inevitably some of the respondents, depending on the size of the group, we had groups of 1, which isn't really a group. And then we had some that had 6 or 7, and those were very different. There was a different level of organic responses to that. But these are the things we generally brought up in each of those if we didn't hear them from the respondents. For example, we did hear a lot about Web of Science and impact factors, because that's kind of the most common thing that a lot of people might say in Google Scholar. But we also wanted to highlight academic profiles, and again, we heard a lot of ORCID, but we also wanted to know if there were things that we were missing. And that was one of the biggest pieces of this, is not just are we doing well, which was also hopefully something we would hear, and we did hear that, but we wanted to know more what types of things interested them that maybe weren't addressed or in the ways that they wanted. And then, as I hinted earlier, we also wanted to know when, and Allison was good about asking how they wanted to get this information, how they wanted it marketing to them. And we did hear a lot of email. We also got, workshops, and, we heard a lot of that. So there's really was no one answer that kind of rose through that, but we're going to judge the data here. And once we get further on, because as Allison said, we haven't done the full evaluation of the transcripts. We just kind of have rough notes at this point. I believe, yeah, we did the last one yesterday, thanks to the schedule interruption. So we have done all 5 groups that we ended up doing. So instead of, we end up with 1 and 2 gone, but we had 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we did ask or get through all of these topics with each group and got a lot of great input from each one. So,
yeah.
But the most, go ahead.
Yeah. We did decide after talking about it to send out the list of questions ahead of time with a reminder email that we sent out, just so that people kind of had an idea of what we were looking for. Because you say impact metrics, broadly, but we wanted to be a little bit more targeted and make sure that they had looked at the guide ahead of time to see if we were meeting their needs, to get the most out of the focus groups that we could. So.
And definitely telling them too, as you were saying, that the questions were there to make them more comfortable, to know what they'd expect, not that it was going to be homework. So I labored particularly over that language, because anytime someone gives you an attachment to review, you sometimes think, oh gosh, it's homework. But we made it clear that this was just to help them be prepared if they chose to. Otherwise, they were welcome to come in and provide whatever was on the top of their minds on this topic.
So we are going to be working with transcription. We played with multiple formats of transcript downloads from Teams. Ultimately, we went with the basic .docx Word file because it played best with Teams and in vivo. We will be auto-coding based on participant names, and then adding demographic information such as faculty rank and department to this information for each participant. But we will be excluding participant names from word analysis using coding, because we don't want participant names to be the most common words that we see coming up over and over again. And we will be running this text analysis to find themes and provide recommendations for changes to services and resources. We next have I think it's on the next slide, just an example of the transcript that was used. We tested this plenty of times. You can see the informal language I use at work, apparently, because "cuz" is a word. But we use this, just something simple. I think this was 30 seconds of text, just to basically learn how to use in vivo, because I've never done this. I normally do legal research, not qualitative research. So, learning more has been great. If you decide that you want to do use in vivo, I highly recommend using their proprietary training documents. I went through, watched the videos, and then they even provide example transcripts. But I kind of wanted to play around with Matt and Minds, because I felt like I learned better hands-on with something that I know what I'm doing. So this may seem very silly, but I highly recommend doing this before you upload, 7 pages of transcription documents, because it is a little overwhelming.
Yeah, start small. I was so impressed at the speed, and I have learned basics about in vivo, but Allison has handled much more of this particular element. So I think, her advice is sage on this. And the next slide is just, why we chose it and kind of what their logo looks like. If you do not have access to it, probably something to talk to about your university, right? I think.
Yeah. And we chose in vivo basically because of its coding potential. I know that's very simple as far as what the slide says, but we really, after looking at different transcription software, this met our needs. We haven't used it extensively yet with all of our transcripts. We're actually going to try hand coding one, just to see if we end up doing kind of the same on in vivo, or if it influences how we code. But that, again, will come out more in our future steps. So.
And that's the next slide. So the next steps are, some of these are required by the internal grant that we had. Now, even though we were given up to 2,000, I think we only spent 850, but we are still, of course, expected to provide results, which is completely fair and helpful to all. So we are going to do that for our colleagues. The grant was awarded to us in April of 2024. So we will, by the end of spring 2025, meet the requirements of creating a report for both the libraries, and we're going to disseminate that to the participants so that they know kind of what came out of it and they feel good about the results. As we've alluded to, we're going to use this also to make changes to our LibGuide, which was linked in the messages and is something that if you just do USF Libraries Impact, it'll come up and on Google, and it's something that we do, which kind of again encapsulates all the resources we have and divides them up into different groups. So, if you're looking for article information, author profiles, book metrics, whatever it is, we have different tabs for each of those, as well as things we link out to that are related but not as core to this, like open access and predatory publications. So we are, as Allison was saying, going to use the text analysis to do the stripping of names and also to target specific audiences for the next stages. We haven't really defined what those are, but one of the things we heard was to look specifically at people at certain levels, especially those maybe earlier on in their academic careers that are tenure track. Allison and myself are faculty at the University of South Florida Libraries, but our faculty librarians do not have tenure. We have rank, but not tenure, so we're not in the same exact world. So we're trying to learn more about them and how we can further assist them. And then, we really hope to do further presentations and publications on this. And once they have all been done, we'll look back at this and see what else we can do, and if we're going to do more focus groups, or what our last idea was off the cuff, kind of thinking about a survey or something just to gather a little bit more large scale information for the next iterations of this particular project. And then at this point, you don't have to hear us anymore. We'll be live momentarily to answer your questions. So thank you all very much from myself and Allison. Any closing thoughts?
I just wanted to let each of our participants know that they're actually making, they're participating to make actual changes to how we provide services, and thanking them for their time, because everyone's busy and, we all get emails, and picking an hour of your day is sometimes a lot to ask, and especially with hurricanes and university closures and lack of power and all of that. But we look forward to, Matt and I look forward to any of your questions, comments, concerns, and please feel free to reach out to us. Our emails are listed if we can provide more information on our project. So thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you.